He is the man who taught a generation how to love by standing outside a window with a boombox. He is the guy who outran the end of the world. And he is also the guy whose face you have seen on the cover of more straight to DVD movies than you can count. John Cusack is a walking, talking Hollywood paradox. He has built an estimated net worth of $50 million while seeming to do everything in his power to reject the blockbuster formula that built it. In an industry that loves to put people in boxes, John Cusack has spent 40 years tearing those boxes apart. His story is not one of a meteoric rise to fame. It's a long, strange, and often bumpy road defined by principled choices, critical flop, and a quiet, unshakable resilience. Welcome to the channel. Today we're not just looking at a career, we're looking at the true cost of John Cusack's success, the bombs that nearly derailed him, and the unexpected victories that cemented his legacy. To understand John Cusack, you can't start in Hollywood. You have to start in Evanston, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, where he was born into an Irish Catholic family in 1966. Now, this was not just any family, with the exception of his mom, Nancy, a former math teacher and political activist. The Cusack clan was so business through and through. His father, Dick, was an actor and documentary filmmaker, and all of his siblings, John, Anne, Bill, and Susie, are actors. John practically grew up backstage at Chicago's Piven Theater Workshop. By the time he was 12, he was already a seasoned pro with stage productions, commercial voiceovers, and industrial films under his belt. He was not some kid who dreamed of being famous. He was a working actor from a family of working actors. Fame was just a byproduct of the craft. He made his film debut at 17 in the comedy Class alongside Rob Lowe and Andrew McCarthy, and followed it up with a small role in John Hughes' classic 16 Candles. But from the very beginning, he was wary. He sidestepped the full-on brat level that consumed so many of his contemporaries. He saw the meteoric rise and the brutal fall, and he wanted no part of it. As his IMDb bio perfectly puts it, John Cusack is an unconventional hero, repelled by formulaic Hollywood fare and determined to play the underdog. This mentality was not just a persona, it was his compass. It would lead him to his first iconic role and his first painful lesson in the cruel math of Hollywood. In 1989, John Cusack became an immortal symbol of romance. As Lloyd Dobler in Cameron Crowe's Say Anything, he gave us one of the most enduring images in all of cinema. But here is the brutal truth that Hollywood does not want you to know. The movie that made him a legend was on paper a catastrophic financial failure. Say Anything was made for a modest budget of about $16 million, and according to the studio's own accounting, it somehow managed to lose $44 million. Think about that for a second. A film that is universally beloved, a cultural touchstone for an entire generation, was framed as a box office bomb. How is that possible? In recent years, Cusack himself has pulled back the curtain on this. He explained that early in his career he had points on the film, meaning a percentage of the profits, but the key devastating word in his contract was net, not gross. This is the infamous Hollywood accounting trick. Studios are masters at making a profitable film look like it's drowning in red ink on a balance sheet, all so they don't have to pay out profit participants. As Cusack put it, it was a neat accounting trick, and it was in the studio's best interest to pretend the film was a flop. So the role that defined his early career taught him an invaluable and expensive lesson. Trust no one in a suit, and the Hollywood system is not built for the artist. It's a lesson that would harden him and shape his decisions for the next 3 decades. Disillusioned but not defeated, Cusack did something in the 1990s that most young heartthrobs would never dream of. He got weird. He used his newfound clout not to chase superhero franchises or big budget action films, but to dive headfirst into the world of independent and author driven cinema. He followed Say Anything not with a glossy rom com but with The Cryptors, a dark, noirish thriller where he played a small time con man caught between his mother and his girlfriend. He worked with Woody Allen in Bullets over Broadway, and more importantly, he took creative control. In 1988, he had co-founded a Chicago-based theater group called The New Criminals, and he later channeled that same indie spirit into his production company, New Crime Productions. This led to one of his most beloved films, Grosse Pointe Blank. He co-wrote it, produced it, and starred in it as a hitman who goes home for his high school reunion. It was dark, hilarious, and perfectly Cusack, proved that he could carry a film entirely on his own offbeat terms. And then came the role that defined his weird era. Craig Schwartz in Spike Jonze's mind-bending masterpiece, Being John Malkovich. Cusack was never afraid to play an unlikable, obsessed, and slightly grimy character. This was the opposite of Lloyd Dobler, and it was brilliant. He was not just surviving Hollywood, he was subverting it, one strange, brilliant film at a time. But here is the thing about principles. They don't always pay the bills, at least not the big ones. After a decade of critically acclaimed but modestly budgeted films, John Cusack made a calculated decision. He would occasionally step into the very machine he claimed to despise, and when he did, he made sure he got paid. He joined the all-star, over-the-top ensemble of Jerry Bruckheimer's Con Air in 1997. But the real payday came in 2009 with Roland Emmerich disaster epic 2012. Cusack played Jackson Curtis, a struggling writer and limo driver who must navigate a world being torn apart by geological apocalypse. Let's be honest, the critics were not kind, the script was ridiculous, the science was laughable, and the film was almost 3 hours long. But none of that mattered to the box office. 2012 was a monster. It opened to $65 million domestically in its first weekend and went on to cross over $791 million worldwide. Cusack reportedly earned $7 million for his trouble. This was a Faustian bargain Cusack made. He would cash a massive paycheck from a soulless blockbuster in order to fund his freedom to make smaller, weirder, more personal projects. He learned from the Say Anything accounting trick. This time he was getting his money upfront in gross, not net terms. The true cost of his success, you see, was not just about earning money, it was about strategically using the system he hated to safeguard the career he loved. For every high fidelity or 1408, there was a period in John Cusack's career that fans refer to as the wilderness years. The 2010s were not kind to our unconventional hero. After the high of 2012, his career seemed to enter a tailspin that was hard to watch. He became the face of what some critics called straight to DVD purgatory. It was a relentless, seemingly never-ending stream of forgettable thrillers and action movies. The title says it all. The Number Station, The Frozen Ground, Braveheart, The Prince, Acclaim. These were films that would appear on a red box or a streaming service on Tuesday and disappear from memory by Wednesday. What happened? Some reports point to his increasingly outspoken political activism and social media presence, which made him a polarizing figure in an industry that prefers its star to be bland and apolitical. Others say he simply became trapped in a cycle of taking any job that came his way. He had taken a big risk with the satirical flop War Inc. in 2008, and perhaps the DTV route was the safest way to keep working. For a man who had built a career on being an anti-establishment hero, this was the ultimate irony. He had become a cautionary tale, a former A-lister, now headlining movies you had find in Walmart bargain bin. It seemed like the lights were fading for good. But here is the thing about John Cusack, you can never count him out. Just when you think he is faded away, he reminds you exactly why you fell in love with him in the first place, and he does it on his own terms. In 2014, he took the role of a lifetime, playing the middle-aged troubled Beach Boys genius Brian Wilson in the critically acclaimed biopic Love and Mercy. This was not a career move, it was a statement. Cusack portrayed Wilson as a man trapped in his own mind, a ward of an abusive psychiatrist slowly being saved by the love of a good woman. The performance was a revelation. It was quite deeply internalized and heartbreaking portrayal of a man struggling to find his voice. It was the kind of role that reminded everyone, critics and fans alike, that beneath the DVD duds, there was still a ferociously talented and committed actor. It was a redemption story written and directed by John Cusack himself. And what is the final scorecard after 40 years of when everyone else jagged? After all the bombs, the blockbusters, the boomboxes, and the bargain bins, John Cusack's estimated net worth sits at a cool $50 million. That number is not just a reflection of his paychecks, it's a reflection of his resilience. He has continued to work in challenging, offbeat material with recent leading roles in films like Decoded and Fog of War. He never sold his soul. He rented it out a few times, sure, but he always got it back. So, what is the true cost of John Cusack's success? It was not a smooth upward trajectory. It was a chaotic, jagged line full of peaks and valleys. The cost was a blockbuster reputation he never wanted, traded for a creative freedom he fiercely guarded. It was the dignity of starring in movies like Say Anything and High Fidelity, paid for with the embarrassment of starring in movies like 2012 and Drive Hard. John Cusack's story is a powerful reminder that success is not always about being the biggest star in the sky. Sometimes it's about being the one star that refuses to be pulled into anyone else's orbit. It's about knowing who you are and what you stand for, even when the entire industry is telling you to just smile for the camera and cash the check. He could have been Tom Cruise, he chose to be John Cusack, and in the end, that choice is worth more than any box office gross. It's the price of integrity, and by all accounts, he had paid it again in a heartbeat. What's your favorite John Cusack role? Is it romantic Lloyd Dobler, the neurotic Rob Gordon, or the apocalyptic hero Jackson Curtis? Let me know in the comments below, and if the story of an unconventional hero inspired you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's most fascinating careers. We will see you in the next one.